Hi everyone, Robin here. Thanks for stopping by today on the Poppystamps blog. My project for you today features several new dies from Poppystamps spring release. This card may look complicated, but it's actually quite easy to put together. The dies I'm using are the finial corner, and my butterfly is made from two dies. The cordon die will give you the base of the butterfly. It can be used by itself, and the Powell butterfly gives you a more open butterfly wing. I'm also using the Thank You streamer die for my sentiment. My card is an A7 or 5x7 side fold card, and I created it from some moss green. I also just received a brand new embossing folder. I'm sure if you're like me, you have a bazillion, but occasionally another one just catches your eye. This one's quite pretty, and I'm just sponging the edges with some antique linen distress ink. I just love the detail in this embossing folder. Using the finial corner die and the same moss green cardstock, I cut two, and I'll be using those as the corners on the front of my card. For the Powell butterfly, I cut the open wings from some off-white cardstock and also sponged the edges of the butterfly to give it a little more depth. To create the colorful part of my butterfly, I'm using spun sugar, faded jeans, and seedless preserves. These are the distress inks, and I'm just sponging them on in a kind of a butterfly pattern, if you will. And I am using some watercolor paper for this. I think it works out extremely well. Once I'm satisfied with my colors, I'm going to lightly spritz the paper, let it activate for a little bit, and apply a piece of paper towel just to pick up a little excess. And as you can see, it gives it some texture. I'm also going to add some metallic watercolors to it before I use the die cut. For the metallic, I just put a little bit of water into the pan, swirl it around until it gets to a flickable consistency, if flickable's a word. I don't know, maybe it is. And I'll be using one of my acrylic blocks to just do some little flicks all over. I enjoy adding some shimmer to my cards this way. It's kind of fun and extremely random, but I like the effect. I'm also going to do some flicking on the butterfly. It's amazing when I was flicking this how many flicks did not end up on the butterfly itself. So here I'm using the cordon butterfly die and placing it pretty much where I think I'd like the colors. And I'll just run that through my die cut machine. And as you can see, it creates a really pretty butterfly. I'm adding some liquid glue to the center of the lower butterfly and adding the more lacy wing die cut to the top. I'll be adding an acrylic block and allow to dry. I'll be adding my embossed panel to the front of my card, and I'm just going to use some liquid glue for this, just applying it to the edges and just a little crisscross through the middle. Using a tape runner on this, sometimes I get a little heavy-handed and I can almost press out the nice embossing. Once again, I'm using an acrylic block to allow to dry. Here's my dry run for the layout on my card. I'm putting a little mark in my die cut sentiment so I know exactly where to place it. And I'll be placing my die cut on a 1/2-inch strip of craft cardstock. I will be using my spray adhesive today off camera. I think you know how to use spray adhesive by now. So once I have placed my sentiment where I like it, once again, we'll be putting an acrylic block on top to allow to dry. My first finial corner is applied to the top left corner of my card front. And again, I use spray adhesive for this. It works out quite well for very fine and detailed die cuts. My thank you strip had dried, and I'm just adding a little bit of distress antique linen along the edge. Sponging the edges of die cuts or strips, for me, always softens them a bit. For the center of my butterfly, I'm taking about an 18-inch piece of rustic twine from Paper Tray ink, and I created a loop in the middle, and I'm just wrapping the tail ends around and through the loop. I'm going to pull it somewhat taut, and the loop will be on the back side, as you can see. You just want to make sure it's somewhat tight. And then I will be wrapping the butterfly a couple of times with the twine. I'll then flip the butterfly over to the back and apply some liquid glue to keep the twine together. Just make sure your last wrap that the two tail ends are straight and that they haven't flipped over on each other. Just like that. Place something heavy on top and allow to dry for a few minutes. Here I've laid out my sentiment strip and I like the position, so I'm going to use a pencil to put a couple of marks on the card and the strip so I know exactly where to place it once I have applied my adhesive on the back of the sentiment strip. Once dry, it's quite easy to trim the excess by using a pair of scissors and the edge of your card as a guide. I'm applying my last finial corner, same manner as I applied the first, little spray adhesive on the back, and you have plenty of time to move some leaves around and arrange them however you like. To add my butterfly to my card base, I use some multi-matte medium glue. That's way too much that came out, so I'm just scraping a little excess off. Add your butterfly to your card front. Once positioned, add something heavy and flat and allow to dry. To finish my card, I'm using tonic crystal drops and the color is pale gold, and I'm just applying them here and there. Just a quick tip, you should probably start at the top of the card and then work your way down. I don't know why I start at the bottom, but I really run the risk of smearing one. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial today, and I also hope you'll stop by Poppystamps and check out their new spring release. Thanks for stopping by, and check back soon. Bye-bye.